Hey guys, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. I hope everyone's having a nice weekend. And today's case is really kind of incredible. We're going to be going down to Australia, more specifically the northwest part of Innisfail in Queensland, Australia, and this was in October of 2014. And before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit, because I know a lot of us, when we think of Australia, we think of, cute kangaroos or koala bears or things that are, I don't know, cute and cuddly and sort of harmless, marsupials, because I guess for the rest of the world, since we don't have them, we are fascinated by them. But the reality of it is the jungles in Australia are teeming with things like crocodiles, and they have the most venomous snakes in the world, like this tiger snake that lives and lurks in the water, and they're all over the place on the eastern part. Or this death adder, which is a highly venomous snake. Not only do they have the highest concentrations of venomous snakes, but there's also a lot of poisonous spiders and other dangerous things. So I just want you to keep that in mind when we're discussing this case. Not to say that there aren't a lot of beautiful things in Australia too. I just want to, in this particular case, I want you to remember there's also things that are very dangerous as well. This all happened about a little bit hour south of Cairns and northwest of Innisfail, this jungle where this took place. And it was the Golden Hole, which I'm going to put a picture up on. This is the map of Australia, and this is the location of where it took place. So it's sort of on the northeastern part of Australia, about an hour south of Cairns. I'm not that familiar with Australia, but I tried to get the best maps I could. Now, if you look at the terrain to the left of the swimming hole, it's just all mountains and jungle. So really, if you make a mistake, you could get into a lot of trouble. Now, this is looking at the swimming hole when you come into it. There's just a little road that comes in, and then maybe a few little spaces to park 1 or 2 cars. And then really the swimming hole, and then it's just surrounded by jungle. So if you make a mistake, if you swim too far down or get lost, it could be you'd be screwed. And there's even warning signs like this one posted saying that there's crocodiles in the area, and you're swimming at your own risk. But the trade-off is it is a beautiful area. I mean, the water is beautiful. There's rocks to climb on, there's waterfalls throughout, and that's what lured this young couple, this woman named Shannon and her fiancé Heath. They had just gotten engaged, and they were happy. They were just gonna go on this day to go swimming for a few hours. And this is sort of looking at the swimming hole from the outside of it. In any event, apparently there's just one little road that goes down. You make a little left, and then you have to sort of walk up to the swimming hole to get to it. Now, somewhere along the line, they got into an argument about something or some sort of disagreement, and they got separated, and Shannon sort of went her own way. He didn't see which direction she went on, and after a few minutes of calling out to her, he sort of realized that she might be lost. So he was searching for 3 hours, and then he realized that she definitely was lost, and he obviously at that point contacted the police and proper authorities. And he told them she had nothing with her. All she had was a t-shirt, some leggings, and some flip-flops. That's it. She had no food, no water. So they knew that this was a dire situation, and they knew that how dense and thick these jungles were. And after a few days, they told him, look, it's probably not probable that she survived. However, but he kept pressing them, and he made them keep searching. And they went out and they were searching for 15 days. And I mean, when I was researching this and I saw what these search and rescue guys have to do and some of the terrain that they have to go through. I mean, they had helicopters. They were using the same type of things that we would, GPS things, drones. But at the same time, they also had to go through extreme conditions. They're diving in areas of water, walking through, snake infested areas, crocodile infested areas. They have to use, different equipment. And honestly, I can't even imagine. But, here's a picture of some of the divers that were searching the area thinking that maybe she had, drowned, maybe she had fallen, hit her head on a rock. Because, in these type of swimming holes, that unfortunately is common. And they had all kinds of people out searching the jungle as best they could, but of course it's a very dangerous situation, so they can't just send a bunch of civilians into the jungle. But apparently they had a ton of volunteers, and over 800 hours of searching were put into this search for Shannon. And unfortunately, after the 15th day, the police and the family, the search was suspended, and they just had to accept the fact that she was most likely either succumbed to the elements, or possibly had fallen, or even worse, maybe taken by a crocodile. And unfortunately, that was the end. And then the miracle happened on October 7th. So this was almost 17 nights after she first went missing, when a banana farmer named Brad Finch, he went over and he was eating his lunch at the Golden Hole, and all of a sudden he sees this woman emerge out of the trees at roughly only about 30 meters from where she was last seen. It was Shannon Fraser. And according to Brad Finch, of course, he was just in shock because she was really badly sunburned. She was gaunt. He could tell that something was seriously wrong. She didn't have any clothes. According to him, all she had was a fertilizer bag, I guess, that she had found and was using for some type of protection. Of course, he got her in a car and he rushed her to the Innisfail emergency room. And she was obviously treated for dehydration and these extreme sunburns. And apparently some of these sunburns were so bad that they were bleeding in spots. This guy, Brad, who found her, was just in awe that she had survived. And he still, when he was interviewed, he said he just couldn't believe it. He said he's never seen sunburns like that. This is Shannon after her recovery, and she said that she had survived on things like river water, small fish and insects that she had found. But in her time in the jungle, she had lost almost 38 pounds or 17 kilograms of weight. And of course, the sunburns. She stated that she had splinters all up and down her feet because, she had lost her flip-flops on basically the first day. And the tree, she said, had ripped off her clothes while she was trying to, work her way through the jungle. And she had somehow found this fertilizer bag and that she had wrapped that around her, but that's all she had. And she told the authorities that basically she would cry herself to sleep at night. And, because she has 3 children at home, so every day she was just trying to figure out how to get back. And she was exhausted. She was getting to the point where she couldn't walk. And she said that the worst part was the sunburn. And I can believe it, looking at the pictures, it's crazy. She said that she laid in the river, which is a freshwater river that flows down from Mount Bartle-Frere. And she said that was the only soothing thing that she could think of that would help her sunburns. And she said that what happened was, on the first day, that once she realized that she was lost, she was trying to gain higher ground, which unfortunately this was actually making her situation worse. But unbelievably, she had climbed Mount Bartle-Frere, which is just incredible, because according to this guy, Finch, he said that it would take hours for someone, even with a machete, to go a few hundred meters. And incredibly, it took her apparently a day and a half of walking, but she made it up there. And this is a quote from the actual report. It said, "No rescuer or search party in their right mind would try and walk up that hill looking for someone, just because, without the trail, it's hard enough." And just a miracle that she was able to do that and then find her way back down. According to what she told everybody, she knew the dangers of the river, but she basically came to a point where she knew she had to face it, obviously. So what she did was she swam downstream a little bit and she climbed onto a rock sort of in the middle of the river to sleep. And she basically waited on that rock for a couple of days because she was scared. I guess she saw a crocodile or something, and she was also on her period. I mean, just awful. I mean, this poor thing, she just was going through a nightmare with these sun blisters. And so at the end of, she finally was able to, she was like, I've got to get off this rock. I've got to get through this. And she just kept telling herself that she had to do it. And she was able to get off that rock, swim back down, and she just was able to get off inland. And somehow she found her way out of the jungle. And this guy, Brad Finch, just happened to be sitting there having his lunch, and he saved her. And I mean, the whole thing is a miracle. She'd been out in the wilderness, the jungle, for over 16 days. But unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. They actually, because she was found so close to where she originally got lost, 30 meters or whatnot, and because there was so much search and rescue efforts made, they were actually, the courthouse there in Innisfail, they were actually thinking of pressing charges on her, thinking that it was some kind of fraud or something. They just felt like there's no way they couldn't have found her because of their efforts. But, this guy, Brad, that found her, he told me, he said that there's no way that she could have faked this. I mean, she was burned to a crisp. I mean, she was so exhausted. And what would be the motive? Why would anybody do that? There's no financial gain. There's no point. I mean, all she wanted was to get back to her children. I can't imagine anybody purposely putting themselves through that type of a situation. And I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. And I'll put the articles in the description so you can read about where they were actually thinking about charging her and why, and then why they decided not to. And really, the fact that she was found close to where she was originally lost, that's not uncommon. That happens here in the United States all the time too. I've read so many stories where hikers were found just a few hundred yards off trail, and there was hours of searches for them. So that's not an uncommon thing to happen. In fact, it's actually relatively common. Oftentimes people will be found in areas that were searched time and again. There's often times where people will be found within a 5-mile radius of where they got lost. That's why it's generally, when you do get lost, generally speaking, it is a good thing to stay put, because people have a tendency, once they're lost, they tend to walk in circles, and they just usually make their situation worse. Now, Shannon was very lucky because she managed to find her way out, and this guy Brad happened to be there and, saved her. But a lot of times it doesn't work out that way. So in many situations, if you do get lost, the best thing to do is try and stay put if you're in an open area so that you can signal helicopters or for help. Obviously, a lot of things you can do, but I just couldn't believe that they were actually thinking of charging this woman, especially after the way they found her. And I'm so happy that she was able to be reunited with her family and her fiancé, and just wishing her and her whole family all the best and God bless. And I think that it's just a miracle that you were able to get out of there, and for your courage and bravery and your just ambition not to give up. I think that's awesome. And I'm sorry that you had to go through not only the whole ordeal, but then being accused of doing something wrong. And sadly, there are cases where people have tried to pull different types of frauds things, but they don't come out of a jungle after being in there for 2 weeks, all sunburned and being all gaunt, wearing a fertilizer bag. I mean, they usually look like nothing has happened, and there's reason for suspicion. But in cases like this, when a person looks like they've been through hell and back, that's not open for debate, at least in my opinion. But sadly, since there have been people that have pulled these kind of things in the past, sometimes there is suspicion raised, but in my opinion, it was not warranted in any way in this case. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching, as always, and please be respectful in the comments if you choose to leave them. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music, and I'll see everybody in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me to the end as always, and thank you all for all your wonderful comments and always giving me feedback, and for all your support. And if you guys have any case suggestions, you can leave them in the comments. I'm still trying to work on the email situation. I've got it pretty much figured out. I'm just waiting to hear back from the Gmail people, and hope everyone's doing great. Wishing you guys all the best, and hope your new year is off to a great start. and I will see everybody in the next one. Thanks again, and take care.